A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil mursalin. Sayyidina wa nabiyyana wa maulana Muhammadin sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma a'limna manfa'na wa bim A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi ja'alni muqimas salati wa min dzurriyyati. Rabbana wa taqabbal du'a. Rabbil fili wali walidayya warhamhuma kama rabbayani saghira wa sallallahu wasallam alaihi walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Alhamdulillah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shukran jazilan, Sister Warda. We are going to start now, inshallah, with the seventh attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the seventh sifat of Allah. Now, it would almost be useful for us to go back to recap, but then that's going to take time as to what we've done up to now, except to say the first part that we dealt with, this previous six, the one was the self sifat, and the other one were the five negating sifat, which meant the things that can never apply to Allah, like beginning and end and so on, and I'm not going to repeat all of them. Now we're starting with a new category of sifat. It's still part of the 20, but 7 sifat. Let me just put up the slides. The 7 sifat that we are talking about are what we call the qualitative attributes. It's difficult to describe exactly what it is accurately, but what the scholars have done, and I found this the best one to go to, it's the way it was described by Sanusi, rahmatullahi alayh, one of the leading scholars on tasawwuf, and much of what we are doing is based on his writings. Now, he describes the 7 that will follow now afterwards, and it's up on the screen, are the qualitative attributes. It means that these are things, the previous things couldn't apply to Allah. These are the things that must apply to Allah. Power, will, knowledge, life, hearing, sight, and speech. And we're going to deal with each one individually. And the first one we're going to go to of these 7 is power, Qudrah. Now, if you ask a child, who is Allah? Then they will say to you, Allah is all-powerful. But they will leave it like that. Even if you ask adults, all power comes from Allah, people will say, even adults. But how do we go beyond this? Why are we doing the sifat of Allah? The main reason why we are doing the sifat of Allah is to understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala better. We can't just use one word, Allah is all-powerful. Allah has power over everything, and then move on to the next sifat. How does that assist us to get to know Allah better? So we will go into a fair amount of detail, and even what we will be covering will be just the tip of the iceberg. There's much more to say about every one of the sifat than what we have done up to now or what we will be doing in future. But let us proceed. Now, the point to make is that we say all power comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes. Now that power that belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not something that can be measured. There isn't a limit to it. there isn't a quantity that one can say, this is the amount of power that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has. It's limitless. There's no way of determining how much power. And we must remember that all energy that we know of and that we even don't know of, in all the different samawat, we know that we in the lowest heaven, the world of time and space, and there are 7 heavens and we are the lowest one. But all the power that's linked to all the other dimensions and realms of existence all come from the same source, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no other power other than that power for everything in the entire created world. Now, if Allah must power or supply power to everything in creation, then it can't really settle in our minds that it doesn't matter how much power is being used, utilized, consumed from the beginning of creation till the end, without that power getting less or more. It remains as is. It's unaffected by the amount of power that we utilize. Subhanallah. Another point that needs to be kept in mind, which we've touched on previously, and it's important to remind ourselves about this. Nothing can happen. The ability for things to happen requires power. And there is no other ability that stands on its own independently. Everything is utterly, in the entire creation, reliant on the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we are reminded in the Quran, and I think this verse, chapter 65, verse 12, Allah says, Allah has power over all things. The Quran is a message that speaks to you and to me and to all the believers, so that we can understand what it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is communicating to us. Now, when Allah says all things, what is all? It means there is nothing that is not covered by it. Allah has power over all things. Another point that should be borne in mind is the power is that something which creates the effect. And we're going to speak more about cause and effect as we move along. When we say creating effect, to make things happen. Creation cannot make things happen. Allah is the one that makes things happen. And it's based on that power and some other factors which we will also touch on later. Because if effect could have been created, now when we say effect, take what I put in brackets there previously, to make things happen. If effect could have been caused by anything in creation, then it means creation will create its own effects and make things happen. And Allah will also make things happen. And you'll have 2 centers of power. That which emanates from creation and that which comes from Allah, and it will result in utter chaos. So that alone is the proof that power can only come from one source, and that source is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, from a previous slide that I did, I took this as a reminder so that we can be reminded of what was said. This is a scientific law that I've quoted here. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only change or be converted from one form of energy to another form of energy. That's a scientific law. It's not something that a hadith that I'm quoting or something from the Quran. It's a scientific law. It's accepted by Muslims and non-Muslims alike, that this is a law that's been established. Now, energy can't be created or destroyed, but look at the one thing that we know of, and that is the sun. The sun uses 7 million tons of gas fuel for every second. Tick, one tick, 7 million tons of gas fuel has been used. Another tick, another 7 million. And it's equivalent to 220 trillion tons of fuel every single year. That's a year. How old is the sun? The sun is estimated to be 5 billion years old. Scientists have more or less worked out the age of the sun and say it's halfway through its lifespan. So it's got another 5 billion years to go. It's only halfway through. Now, if it's used, just think of what is used. 5 billion times 220 trillion, you can do your own numbers on that. That's the amount of fuel that's been used just by the sun. And the sun is only one of trillions of stars. In our universe, the lower universe only, we're only talking about the lower universe. Can we imagine how much power we're talking about? Now the sun, people are going to say, okay, now the sun, we know that energy which the sun generates is created by nuclear fusion. Nuclear fusion, without going too technical, we know that atoms are made up of electrons going around the nucleus, which is made up of a neutron and a proton. Now, when two or more of the nuclei fuse together, then it releases all this energy. This microscopically small entity, when two of the nuclei fuse, then it releases all this energy, subhanallah. And when the nucleus is separated, then we create electricity. This is the nuclear power that we create. We've been through that in the past. I'm not going to dwell on it. But yes, so it seems as if to the scientific world, and for that matter to us in the material world, that there is this enormous amount of power that's latent, it's sleeping, it's awaiting to be triggered, that's within the smallest particle of one of the smallest particles that we know of. Of course, we've discovered that atoms can be even divided into smaller and smaller and smaller parts. And as time goes on, they will find even smaller parts to what they have found to date. This is just the sun. Look at the amount of energy that the sun generates. So where does it come from? It's locked up in the nucleus, yes, of the atom. But where does that power and energy that's waiting to be unleashed, where does it originate from? They've taken us scientists, and we must thank them for the work that they've done there. They've actually gone down, right down to where the energy is awaiting to be unleashed, but they can't tell us where it actually originates from. We can go to the Big Bang and we can go beyond that, But scientists can only take you to the Big Bang, and then they throw their hands up in the air and they say they don't know. The studies haven't revealed to them yet where all this potential energy comes from. Now, when we use the next slide, I use the word means. That is a means to an end. That's an instrument or a channel or a tool. So when I use the word means, and I'm going to use it throughout, understand what I am saying. That means it's just a medium or a channel. Now, in creation, there are several means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen as a means to bring about certain results. But before we even talk about that, we must remember when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses a particular means, then the ability to do what that means must do does not transfer to the means. The ability to create that effect always remains with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The moment Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestows that ability on a particular means, it doesn't retain it, it doesn't stay there. It has to be continuously renewed because it doesn't belong there. And even for the next very second or fraction of a second, it has to almost ask for permission for it to continue doing what Allah expects it to do. But the ability to do whatever it is never transfers to the means. Please remember that. I might as well make the point now. I was going to do it later. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us life, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also gave us power and energy to conduct our lives. Now that power that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us does not belong to us, and it doesn't mean that we are in control of that power. No, I mustn't do it now. I must do it later. I'll explain this point because it comes through a lot more clearly when we go on. So the point here is the means never retains the power once Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives it the power. And power never transfers. The ability to make things happen never transfers to whatever means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses. It always remains with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the ultimate power. It just acts as a medium or a channel. So the means can only do what Allah wills for it to do. And that's where the word bi'idhnillah, with the idhn of Allah, with the will of Allah, with the permission or the consent of Allah. Now, it's false to believe that once power is deposited in an object, whatever the object is, whether it is in a person, in a flower, or in the neutron, the ability to create effect. Not only does the ability to create effect never transfer to that means, but also the control never moves to the means. So it's got the ability now to create effect if Allah gives it that. But what can be done or not done with that is always under Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's control. that also doesn't transfer across. It's a subtle difference that I was trying to get across, that it's not just the ability to create effect, but the control of that effect also never transfers across. Now you're going to say, but Allah created me. I can get up and I can walk, I can talk, I can do whatever I do. So you think, or so we think. Yeah, Allah makes it very clear. When it is Allah who created you, that we accept Allah is our creator, and whatever you do. So whatever you do, that ability to do, to create that effect, comes from Allah, not from you. This is something that's going to come up all the time. It is Allah who created you and what you do. It's Allah who created the doer and what the doer does, and the actions of the doer. This is something that's going to repeat itself, and I hope, inshallah, that it will sink in tonight already, so that when it's repeated, you have a feel for this. At the level of Islam, at the very basic level of belief, you've not gone very far into trying to get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala better. You've remained at the level of the Sharia, the 5 arkans and so on. There you can say Allah has given you the ability to do. You're not going to be punished if you believe like that. But at the level of Iman, then you have to accept that it's Allah who created you and the ability to do anything. Not just the ability, but the effect. What example can I use? Last time I used the example of a glass. There was a glass. I pick up the glass. Now for me to lift up the glass, the movement of the glass from the table to where I keep it in my hand, that movement, I've got the thought and the choice of wanting to pick the glass up. To get the glass from there to here doesn't happen with me or my choice or my power. We say power comes from Allah, so Allah's given me power. Can I now lift the glass? Can I create that act of lifting the glass from where it was to where it is now? No. Please understand this is a very delicate point, but it's something that we must understand and grasp, and it's going to be repeated in different ways. And that is what is referred to as the effect of the glass moving from where it was. The result of my choice is that the glass is now here. That result is entirely under Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's control. And it never transfers to me. I can never claim that I have lifted the glass at the level of Iman and the level of Ihsan. If you want to be a true believer and you want to really believe correctly in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you can't say that you have lifted that glass. We said at the level of Islam, yes, give me the glass, I want to drink. You think you can drink? Yes, okay, maybe it's at that basic level. So keep your Tawhid pure so that you never claim what Allah says in the Quran. Can one doubt this? When it is Allah who created, not just you, but whatever you do, Allah created that. And that remains completely under Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's control. Now, there's never a compulsion on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ever. Because Allah is the owner and controller of everything in the entire universe. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can decide He can use a means all the time like that or not. Let me not quote examples. It's not necessary because Allah can do what Allah wants. There are many miracles in the history of Islam where means have behaved different to what would have been seen as normal. And out of this, we should just be careful that we should be cautious when we use the word I can or I have, because now you claiming ownership. I can, you claim ability. I have, you claim possession of. If Allah says clearly in this verse, when it is Allah who created you and whatever you do. The scientists will, or the non-believers, people who don't believe in a higher power, early on we dealt with these people referred to themselves as the naturalists, or the people who believe in the laws of nature. They say that there's only the laws of nature, and the laws of nature governs everything in creation. Are the laws of nature different to the laws of Allah? Is it a different set of laws? We must be careful how we interpret this, because if we use the laws of nature, then things are very predictable. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. That's a law of nature. It's a scientific law. Clouds bring rain, sun gives heat. Scientific laws of nature. The laws of nature and science are all Allah's laws. They're not a separate set of laws that apply to creation, or an alternative or independent or a standalone. That laws of nature on the one side and the laws of Allah on the other side. What they claim are the laws of nature is part of the laws, only part of the laws that they have discovered of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's laws work. One can probably have a long debate and discussion around this, but I think the point is made. Laws of nature are not separate from Allah's laws. They all form part of the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, we've also been through this one before, and we've used the example of water and the knife. Water itself does not have the ability to quench the thirst. The knife does not have the ability to cut. The knife does not have the ability to cut, and water does not have the ability to quench your thirst. Although the general results associated with water is water quenches the thirst. And knives, if it's sharp enough, it can cut you. That's the general, what we would refer to as the general laws of nature. Yes. But what scientists have done, they've assigned that ability of the knife to cut you to the knife, or for the water to quench your thirst to the water. And we said the effect of quenching the thirst, or for the knife to actually cut, comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The water doesn't have that ability within itself, or the knife doesn't have that ability within itself. And the two examples that cited the knife and the fire to burn, we know about the story of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam when he wanted to sacrifice his son on the instruction of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah instructed the knife not to cut. The knife was put there to cut. The knife could not cut. When the people at the time of Nabi Ibrahim threw him in the fire, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructed the fire to be cool and not to burn. Those are examples where the natural, normal laws that we associate with certain means, certain instruments, or certain tools, or whatever, the results, the effect of what those things can do always remain with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and under Allah's control. Doesn't mean when Allah will use a particular means, now that means has that ability to do. It never has the ability to do unless Allah instructs it to do or not to do. So that ability to make things happen never transfers to the means. Please, 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 please remember this, remember this, remember this. Now, can Allah bring rain without clouds? Make it rain without clouds? You think about it. Your mind will struggle with that because you associated rain with clouds all throughout your life. If you understand this, then you know Allah can make it rain without a cloud in the sky. Allah can make things happen without using any means whatsoever. But look how merciful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really is. Allah has used means so that we can understand this world and this environment and our surroundings. That things are not just happening and we don't know why and how and there's no explanation. Allah has associated certain things with certain results to make it easier for us to understand. But it doesn't mean that Allah can do things without using any means. Because if it means that, then it means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is dependent on a means and Allah is never dependent on anything. Allah can do things directly. For example, here I mentioned Nabi Adam alayhi salam, right at the beginning, in the state of our ruh. We weren't born yet, human beings weren't born yet into the world. They only had their form as ruh. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called the malaika, and that was the time when Allah informed them that Allah is going to put a Khalifa on earth. And well, without going into all of the detail now, we've been through some of this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked the malaika to explain what certain things are. The names. Now, the general understanding at the very basic level is names was interpreted as the meaning attached to explain what certain objects and events are within creation. In Tasawwuf, the higher level of Iman, the names that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted the malaika to explain what it is was the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the malaika couldn't explain it. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked Nabi Adam alayhi salam to explain it. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught the names directly to Nabi Adam. Unlike revelations that came via the malaika, and the malaika brings the rain, and the malaika takes the ruh, and things like that, where they are used as means. In this was an instance where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't use any means. Allah taught the names directly to Nabi Adam, and Allah instructed Nabi Adam alayhi salam to then teach the malaika the deeper meaning of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's names. So in a sense, we have every single human being, Muslim or non-Muslim, have that inner knowledge deep inside the secret of the secret, within the sir, the secret, the sir of the sir. That knowledge resides there, of knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through pure knowledge. And our task is to uncover and remove the veils so that we can uncover that meaning and understanding. Subhanallah, that's one of the lifetime objectives of why we are on this dunya. I'm going slightly off the point. Just on this part to say, so if we say Allah can create the effect alone, only Allah can make, if the bus is coming directly to you, and you're standing in front of the bus, and you lift your hands and you say, I believe in Allah. The bus doesn't have ability to make things happen comes from Allah. And I believe in Allah, and you stand for the bus. The bus will knock you from here to wherever. Because we don't know what Allah's will is at that moment. That would be foolish. We must observe the laws that Allah has made known to us, where rain comes from, what a knife can do, what water can do, and whatever else can do. You don't do things that's outside of the laws, because those laws are Allah's laws. But Allah doesn't have to stick to those laws. Allah can change the laws if Allah wills, but we never know what Allah's will is. So when people say, COVID injection or not, if it's Allah's will that I must die, I will die. I'm not going to take the injection. I'm not making a point for or against. I'm illustrating how people reacted and responded. If the general consensus is that one should, from the experts in the field, is that one should do a certain thing, then they have discovered how Allah uses certain means in terms of the general law. And we expected to obey that. You can't now say, if it's Allah's will, then nothing will happen to me. There are people at a much higher spiritual level who can maybe do things like that. But we are far from that. We must listen to the experts in the various fields, take their advice and abide by the natural laws of nature. Don't try and go do something that's the opposite and say, if it's Allah's will, then it will happen. If it's not Allah's will, no matter what they do, whether it's a bus or a train or whatever, nothing can harm me. That would be foolish. So don't take this point out of context, because this is what has happened to the the Qadariya was a group of people about well, more than 1,000 years ago, a group of people who believe, they claim to be Muslim, but this is how they believed. They believe that all power comes from Allah. Yes, they accept that. They know that there's no other source of power. All power, regardless of what it is, comes from Allah. Good point. Give them a tick for that one. But they say that once Allah has given you life and given you power to do what you need to do once you are born, then people have the ability to create their own effect. You do whatever you want to do. You control what you need to do. You decide what you want to do. Yes, you must account for the things that you do. You know, good will bring you reward and bad will give you punishment. And ultimately, how you use that power that Allah has given you must be accounted for. But they say Allah doesn't interfere once Allah has given you that power. They've got the freedom. Allah's not going to hinder them from doing what they want to do. Now, this sounds very logical if you take into account that Allah has given us choice and to do what we want to do, as long as we're going to account for it in the form of well, we have to come and explain what our record says and agree what the reward or the punishment would be. Not agree, but I mean, we will be told what it will be and we will accept it. They say that if Allah gave them the freedom to choose, then Allah won't interfere. Because they say, if Allah did interfere in what they want to do, then what would be the point of choice? So Allah is fair. Allah is going to judge them according to what they've done, but they can do as they please. Now, if I must be honest with you, I was probably in my late 20s until I don't know till what age. I believed like this. Subhanallah, may Allah forgive me. I believe that Allah knows who you are. Allah's given you power and ability. Go and use it. But know you're going to have to account for whatever you do, whether it's punishment or reward. But every act is associated with either the one or the other. Go and use that power. I believed like that. Incorrectly, falsely. I sit here and I admit freely. And why am I doing that? Because there might be people who are still believing like that. And I want to assist in whatever way I can to correct that kind of belief. And why it is wrong is, if you say you can independently, without interference from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do whatever you please to do, then it means that you can create your own effect. And here you will have another case of where you create effect and Allah creates effect. The people, the philosophers and people who have studied these topics refer to it as a form of dualism. Dual means two. Well, in this case, it's more than one. It's either in creation which is considered one, or it is with the creator, and both can exercise control or power or create effect with that. Now, if you are a believer, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides you with the following verse. Allah has power over all things. Again, Allah has power over all things. Allah didn't say Allah has power over all things and humanity has also power over some things. Allah says unreservedly, no ambiguity, Allah has power over all things. And you can't do what you want to do. You think you can do what you want to do. Now, sometimes Allah would do things that you won't be able to explain, but generally Allah would use certain means in creation so that you can logically and rationally explain why certain things happen. But if you intend to do something and you think you can do, then Allah will either allow you or not allow you to do it. Now, if you believe you can do things on your own, you would be going against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says there. I think I better stop here because we're going to run into time problems. I didn't think we'd be able to complete this. Cause and effect is, no, let me not touch on it even. Let me rather open the floor, and I would like some participation from the floor to hear whether people have understood or they have a problem, or give your understanding of what you understood certain aspects of what we've covered under this heading of Qudrah, power, divine power. I'm not going to continue. We're going to rather continue next week because there's a few more slides that we need to do under the heading. Inshallah, we will do that next week. But for now, I'm opening the floor and I am inviting people to participate now. Put your questions, make your comments. Please, I value that.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, Muhammad. I hope your car is fixed.
And it's still in the process, but Salie.
Alhamdulillah, at least it's in the process.
Remember, I was sitting with you in the car and you told me I must remember the word Qudrah.
Yes.
You're going to be doing it.
Yes, Alhamdulillah.
And
Alhamdulillah.
yeah, we are.
Yes, Alhamdulillah. Do you have a comment or a question?
And I was hoping you could elaborate a bit more on that, Salie. I'm still not fully recovered, man. I'm not experiencing the best of health still, so I don't know. It's just cold and everything. Yeah, I don't know.
Alhamdulillah.
You can hear by my voice in my throat and everything. Right?
Okay.
It's been a bit of a rough weekend for me.
Okay. May Allah make it easy. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for you. Okay. Let's hear if there's anyone else who would like to make a comment or ask a question.
I would like to ask a question, or just to find out whether my understanding, which I also previously, my understanding was that if you have a choice, or if we exercise our choice, that is actually the power that that is actually the power that we have at that time. But now I realize there's never any transfer of power. So whatever you're able to do is only by the power of Allah. So you do not have any power, but ability it's not ability, is power, but the permission of Allah for you to do that. I don't know if it sounds confusing, but
No, it's fine.
am I on the right track?
Let's hear if there's other comments anyone would like to add to what Sister Warda said, or maybe a different comment. Let's hear.
I agree with that, Salie, because there is no power except the power that is granted to you by Allah, in a nutshell. Because everything besides the Creator is dead. We are all dead, you know. And Allah is the main source of. Allah's high. He's the controller, and He's the sustainer, and He's, you know, He's the. To Him belongs all sovereignty, and you know He can resurrect the dead, you know. And that's what He is going to do one day, you know, when we all be brought up in front of Him again.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's actually the point.
Aisha, you've been very quiet. I'd like to hear what your comments are, if you have any.
I just think back to a drop of water, that even each drop of water without Allah's power cannot fall. And like you said, an example long ago of the knife. That knife is dangerous, but without Allah's permission, it can't cut you or hurt you or anything like that.
Now, can I put this question, a different question to all of you who made comments now? I want to ask you, so now Allah allows you to do certain things. Do you have the power then to do that? That moment, let's use an example. Say you don't want to use the knife to stab, but you want to cut the bread. Let's use it like that. You've made up your mind, you want to take the knife and you want to cut the bread. That's your choice that you've made. That's the act that you want to engage in. Allah allows you at that moment to exercise your choice. Do you have the power to do it? Do
yes,
you have?
Because Allah's given you the power to. Allah's granted it to you. It is only by the permission of Allah. Like when Nabi Isa also resurrected the dead. He mentioned that, you know, it was only by the leave of Allah, you know.
Okay.
It was only granted to him. It was something that was gifted to him.
Yes. Do the other people agree with what has been said?
I think that Salie, do you mean like does power transfer?
You tell me.
Allah, no power does transfers from Allah to anything. It's just Allah gives permission for something to happen. Allah allows it to happen, but power does not leave or lessen. Allah's power doesn't lessen. The power stays with Allah.
Very good answer. Warda?
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Sorry, Warda.
Okay.
Yes, Amina.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Wa alaikum salam, Amina.
Sheikh, I would just like to relate a personal experience.
Yes.
You know, with siblings fighting growing up.
Yes.
It's just something I experienced. And you and I explaining something about the knife. So I had a fight with my brother, my elder brother. I'm the second eldest as a child. And, you know, children, you tease each other and you fight and you argue. And obviously this brother irritated me and I was standing with a knife in my hand. And I got so angry, I threw him with a knife. And it wasn't a blunt knife, it was a sharp knife. And that motion or that experience, it was so shocking for both of us. because we realized in that moment what just happened. I could have really hurt him. I could have, it could, but it did not, the knife did nothing. It just touched him. But it was the effort and just the emotion I felt, and I threw it with, you know, it was a hard throw. But in that moment, a love and respect for each other was created. Because and after that, we never fought. We never ever had a fight after that. That was it. That was the last, and it was just up till today. We are so close with one another that I always think of that, and I'm so grateful, because, like you say, the knife, it's Allah made it blunt.
Who threw the knife?
I did.
Are you sure? Are you sure you can make things happen?
I hear what you say. Yes. Oh, I understand. Yes.
You see, it becomes very subtle.
Yes.
When I was explaining this to someone else, I used the example, if you get into the car and you want to drive the car.
Yes.
What makes the car move? Who's driving the car? It can go to a point where your mind can't cope with it anymore, because we're so used to associating that our ability comes from us. You get behind the wheel of the car and you can drive the car. You pick up the knife and you can throw the knife. You can pick up the ball and you can kick the ball. Yes. Can you really kick the ball? Can you really cut the bread?
No. We cannot do anything.
You can do nothing.
Yes.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that to us. We can do nothing. Now comes the other question that would complicate it. So why is it? Well, maybe I shouldn't ask, but now that I've halfway said it, you could ask the question, but I'm going to do something wrong. Why did Allah allow me to do the wrong? Why didn't Allah stop me?
Yes.
That could be a question. If it is a question, then you could answer it like this. So if Allah stops you from doing something wrong, then to be fair to all of creation, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should stop everyone in creation from doing wrong. And if everyone in creation is not doing anything wrong, then they are like the malaika. They're obedient to the laws of Allah. They only do good. Then where does choice fit in? Then why did Allah create a being with choice to decide between good and bad? Allah created the possibility of good and bad as a test for us, the highest form of existence of a species that Allah has not created before. Allah created us and told the malaika, I know what you don't know. Because Allah knew our ability as human beings to be extremely bad, kill, murder, rob, everything that's wrong, but also to progress along the ladder of getting to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be better than even the malaika, potentially. So potentially the worst and potentially the best, with choice in between. So Allah's not going to interfere with your choices. So if you want to do something bad, Allah will, if it's Allah's will, allow you to do the bad, but Allah has spelled out what the consequences of your actions are. We can't be like, and we're going to come to that one. I'm already going too far now off the point, but let me round it off by saying the essence of what this point is about is understand that nothing has power. And when Allah says Allah has power over all things, we are included in that all. We never have power. That power, what does transfer mean? What does transfer mean? House transfer, or transfer an object from one point to another. I take the glass, I transfer it from there to there. What does transfer? Transfer means moving from one point to another point. That's what transfer means. If we say power can transfer, it means that some of, not all, but some of Allah's power moves from Allah to us. And if some of the power moves to us, what does it say? That Allah's power is now deficient of that amount that has been transferred to us. Is it not so? Some of the power has transferred. Allah's power never decreases. We said it's not possible to increase or decrease. It's utterly perfect, unchangeable. One of the sifat that we dealt with, unchangeable. And if it's unchangeable, it means it can't get more, it can't get less. Therefore, it can't transfer. The ability to execute comes via the means, but the power of Allah is still the thing that makes it happen. I'd like for us to, at the next session, maybe start off with a continuation of this. Think about it, but come prepared with what your view or understanding is, or what your question would be now that you've thought about it. And I'm going to rather leave it on that note, and we will continue, inshallah, with this topic and the sifat. Unless anyone wants to make a final comment, then I would like to conclude. Let's hear, is there any final comment or maybe a quick question? Okay, if not, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, I'm excited. Maybe I should have allowed the question time a bit earlier. But we'll see next week. Maybe I'll introduce it so that we can engage and interact a bit more, because we learn more when more people make their comments and questions. And I learn in the process as well, alhamdulillah. Shukran for all of you, for your participation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy on all of us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remove all the difficulties and the hardships, and make it easy for us to cope with the test in whatever form it comes to us, that Allah gives us the ability to manage it with complete iman. Let it never affect our iman. Let us be patient with the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And may Allah be pleased with our efforts and make it possible for us to continue on this journey to try and get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala better. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Muhammad, whether you're sick or not, I'm going to ask you to make dua for us.
Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil
Alameen.
Shukran Allah for another week. Guide, protect, help us, and give us strength, give us knowledge from your ancient heavenly knowledges, and increase us in our blessings, increase us in our sustenance in everything of khair and good. Shukr Allah, Ya Allah. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Shukran, Muhammad, and shukran to all of you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep you safe. And we'll see one another next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shukran.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Dr. Salie?
Yes.
Maafmin, what was the name of it? Tablets again, you said? I'm gonna try it now because
Flustat.
Flustat, né?
Flustat, yeah, it's a cheap,
I must
very
write
cheap
it down.
tablet. In fact, let me just tell you, the night before I went on, oh, did I stop the, wait, you just stop the recording.